This is Newsroom. Hello and welcome from Johannesburg here in South Africa. My name is Ian Jansen. The show, of course, broadcasts live every weekday morning between 9 and 10 a.m. Highlights repeated at 2 o'clock in the afternoon and rebroadcast at 5 a.m. the following morning. We're also streaming live on YouTube between 9 and 10 a.m. every day, with the entire show available on our YouTube channel all of the time. Today, we look at the carnage on the roads in our country over the holiday weekend. We also then make contact with the Oscar Pistorius support group that is based in Germany, and why the Bushmen in Botswana have called on royalty to intervene in the hunting ban in that country. First though, here are the news headlines. More than 100 people have been killed on the country's roads since the beginning of the Easter weekend. The Road Traffic Management Corporation says disregard for road rules is a major contributor to accidents. Traffic across all major roads remains high as people make their way home after the Easter weekend. The Minister of Transport, Dipuo Peters, will tomorrow release the final figures of the 2014 Easter Road Safety Campaign. President Jacob Zuma has met residents and the business communities, areas surrounding Nkandla in KwaZulu-Natal, to address their concerns over the lack of infrastructure in the area. The president is under fire over security upgrades worth 246 million rand to his Nkandla home. He has put together a steering committee and tasked it with coordinating improvements in service delivery in that part of KwaZulu-Natal. And groups backing the campaign against rhino poaching say the 40 rhino horns stolen from the safe of a state tourism organization at the weekend could be worth at least 160 million rand. The horns were taken from the Mpumalanga Tourism and Parks Agency. More than 270 rhinos have been killed already this year, nearly half of them from the Kruger National Park. More than 100 people have been killed on the country's roads this Easter. The Road Traffic Management Corporation says disregard for road rules is a major contributor to the carnage.
Traffic was heavy on the N1 towards Pretoria. Over 700 cars passed through the Pumlani toll around midday. Officials kept a close eye.
There is an increase of road safety compliance, especially during this period. So it means that people really adhere to our messages.
In Johannesburg, traffic picked up slowly. Nearly 700 vehicles were passing through the Hoek toll plaza per hour. In KwaZulu-Natal, the N2 and N3 were congested as holidaymakers began leaving the province. By this afternoon, 2,000 cars per hour were passing through the Marion Hill toll plaza. Authorities say fatalities are fewer than last year.
Up to yesterday, across the Easter weekend, it is clear that we are still sitting at 30, which is still one death too many. But the year before, by the end of the day yesterday, we would have killed 36 people on the roads.
In the Western Cape, there was heavy traffic on all major routes. The Easter death toll in the province has risen to 7. Officials have been deployed on the N1, N2, West Coast, and say lorries passed near Somerset West.
We started with a new strategy. Friday evening, Saturday evening, as well as last night, we embarked on integrated alcohol blitzes. Started 8 o'clock in the evening and we went right through till around about 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning. And up to 64 drunken drivers was arrested.
In the Eastern Cape, law enforcement was clearly visible on all the province's busiest roads. There were major roadblocks on the N2 and the notorious K cuttings and the N6 near Queenstown. Traffic volumes increased between Polokwane and Pretoria this afternoon. Thousands of holidaymakers used both the R101 and the N1 back to Gauteng. More than 2,000 cars passed through this toll gate in an hour. Police officers and SANDF members have also joined forces with traffic officials. More buses are expected on the R101 between Moria and Polokwane. The Minister of Transport is expected to release the road statistics on Wednesday.
If all goes well, on Wednesday we will be releasing the statistics. That would give an indication on what happened at municipal level, what happened at provincial level, as well as on the national roads. So we want to collate the stats and give the nation an indication on whether we are seeing a reduction or an increase.
Traffic volumes are expected to increase into the night.
Yes, as the Minister said, the figures will be released tomorrow. That's the final figures for the 2014 Easter long weekend death toll. It is the latest figures according to the RTMC, that at least, more than 100 people have been killed in road accidents throughout the country over the long weekend. To look at the figures, we have in studio Santako Strategic Manager Bafana Magagula, and then the chairperson of the Justice Project here in South Africa, Howard Dembowski. Good morning, and thank you for joining us.
Good morning to you.
Howard, I wanted to start with you. It looks almost like, if you look at the national average of about 38 to 40 fatalities per day in normal time, it looked like there's less carnage on the road with more volumes of traffic. Is that a good sign?
Well, it certainly looks that way, but we need to bear in mind that there's a reason why the Easter stats are only going to be released tomorrow, and that is that the RTMC is still waiting for them to come in from police stations. So let's not break out the champagne just now, especially if you're going to be driving. But the fact is that we can probably expect that figure to raise pretty significantly as the figures come in from the various SAP stations around the country, because at the end of the day, that's how we determine how many people are killed on our roads.
Bafana, if this is accurate and there are less people dying when we have more volumes of people on the road, does it mean that the campaigns that's being run at the moment is bearing fruit, and that it should be extended, and where does that money come from?
Well, yes, it is a good sign, though 103 people is still a lot of people that, to still die on the roads. We really need to do more to try and bring that number, actually try to do our best to bring it to zero. With our Santako Hlokomela program, we really want to do more. We're still not impressed that there are still people dying on the roads. It's still a concern that there are still people dying on the road.
Collateral damage, in the end, there has to be some fatalities on the road because it's just the nature of the beast, I suppose. But are you happy with the kind of campaigns that are happening over peak times?
Well, look, at the end of the day, if we didn't have them, there's no doubt about it that we would have a lot more carnage than we actually do at the moment. You know, unfortunately, there's an age-old saying that people will, number one, drive as badly as authorities allow them to drive. Yeah. Secondly, that it's a little bit unrealistic to expect people to suddenly come and behave at festive periods like Easter and Christmas, when you allow them to act like hooligans for the other days of the year. And let's be honest, over 300 days of the year, they're allowed to do their own thing. If we had the same kind of consistent, visible, effective traffic policing 365 days a year, we would reduce these figures dramatically.
Where do we get the money, though, Howard?
What do you mean, where do we get the money? These people are employed. Traffic officers don't just suddenly materialize during Easter and at Christmas. They're employed 365 days a year by traffic authorities. It's not a hugely costly thing. But let's also have a look at where we do get that money. If we reduce fatalities on our roads, we reduce the 307 billion rand a year that traffic crashes and fatalities cost our economy.
Internationally, what's the picture like?
Well, if you have a look at countries that have adopted very strong traffic policing regimes, you will note that they have incredibly low
one of the international
figures.
Campaigns, yeah?
Yes, there's one of the international campaigns where they say, stop the violence. And quite frankly, road traffic crashes are as a result of violence. This is a very violent way to die. So perhaps we need to start thinking about that type of thing. We need to start telling people that if you exceed the speed limit, you're a bloody idiot, plain and simple. Yeah. The fact is that people don't realize motor cars are tested at 64 kilometers an hour. Yeah. And then we drive them at 120, 130, 120 kilometers an hour on our roads, and we wonder why we end up with crashes of spectacular proportion like we do in this country.
What's the main problem areas that you encounter as the taxi industry still on the roads now, especially over peak times?
Well, over peak time, we still encounter the behavior of drivers, that drivers get excited, especially those that goes on the long distances when they are on those freeways. Yesterday, I had to drive from Durban, just take a drive from Durban with the President, Mr. Taibosh, looking at how our drivers are behaving. Believe me, one of the drivers has had to overtake us driving exactly at 120 kilometers an hour and driving a Quantum loaded with people and their luggages. Those are the problems. And with our Hlokomela program, we really want to intensify the campaign in terms of educating and educating, because I still don't understand why don't we have plane crashes at all. Why can't we have the same attitude with our drivers when they've got passengers in their hands?
I think one of the reasons for that, Todd, would have to be hardware, the tools that people use on the roads, the cars and so forth. The tires are often a major point of concern on roads here in South Africa. Just talk us through that.
Well, most certainly, you know, tires are what separate you from death, to be very honest with you. And, you know, people who run off and go and purchase tires at the side of the road from these people who've got them from tire dealers, who give them to them because it's costly to dispose of these tires, and then they go and re-groove them. And this kind of thing happens. You end up having the entire tread come off that tire. The vehicle then subsequently rolls, people get injured and people get killed. But I just want to come back to something that my colleague just said with respect to a minibus taxi overtaking him when they were doing 120 kilometers an hour. The speed limit that is applicable to minibus taxis carrying passengers is 100 kilometers an hour. Therefore, that vehicle was at least 20 kilometers an hour over the speed limit, but we don't enforce those things. Similarly, with our heavy goods vehicles, the speed limit that's applicable to them is 80 kilometers an hour, and it's frequent that these guys come tearing past you when you're doing 120 k's an hour.
The taxi industry must always guard against things like poor quality tires, poor quality workmanship, and that sort of thing. How do you police that?
Well, we are training our queue marshals. The queue marshal is the person who dispatches these taxis. He first take people into the vehicle and dispatch them to the road. We are training them, and we are trying to do our best to train them to make sure that they must make sure that if a vehicle, if the tires are not in a good condition, brakes are not in a good condition, they should discontinue that vehicle and not allow it to take that long trip.
Howard, we've got the carnage counter up here. Just run people through the carnage counter, how you guys put it together, and how does it work in practice. We see the cost to the nation is what, 94 billion rand? Is that for the month so far? No,
that's for the year so far. The fatalities that we're actually talking about, 5,057 people dead. People who've been paralyzed, and I think this is something that we need to start reporting on, 2,800 odd people, 46,000 odd people injured. And this is the one thing that I'm going to encourage the Department of Transport and the RTMC to actually start releasing. Because when you say 103 people died on our roads this last Easter, it's very easy to come to the conclusion, well, that's not too bad. Okay. When you then turn around and say around about 1,000 people were injured seriously on our roads.
On the counter says 46,000 injured for the year. That's a number that sort of rings home.
Well, it has to. We are at war, and I've said this on numerous platforms and repeatedly. The fact is, what we have on our roads is a violent war. It's a violent crime, it's a violent war, and quite frankly, we should be throwing every resource that we can at it. If we're going to say, where's the money going to come from? Very simple. 94 billion rand. To this stage in the year, we're 4 months into the year. surely that should be telling you where the money can come from.
Yeah, absolutely. It's well, it's a smart way of looking at it. Howard, I wanted to ask you a final question, Bafana, around the taxi industry, safety belts. Do we see a scenario where in the future safety belts will be put in on all seats in taxis and so forth? Is that the kind of route you guys are thinking of?
Well, all vehicles are fitted with these safety belts, and it is surprising that passengers don't wear them. But what we're doing, we're encouraging our drivers to encourage and make sure the queue marshal, it should start with the queue marshal. Every time a passenger walks and take a seat there, he should encourage the passenger to wear his or her safety belt, and actually give a little bit of education as to why he must put his safety belt on, so that people understand. Because sometimes people don't wear these things not just because they don't want wear, but they are just careless because sometimes they don't understand. There is no education as to how it can save him or her from a crash.
Well, we hope that the numbers are a little bit better. But thank you for joining us this morning. We'll keep on hammering away at this one hard, and hopefully the people out there will be listening. And it's all about changing our behavior on the road, really.
Sure. Correct.
Thank you very much for joining us this morning. That's Howard Dembowski from the Justice Project here in South Africa. And then Santaco Strategic Manager, Mr. Bafana Mogagula. Thank you for joining us this morning.
It's our pleasure.
Let's just take a quick look at what's on social media at the moment. What you're talking about. There you have some of those pictures. That's the wonderful campaign, and we've got all of that running on our Twitter feed. So these are just some of the pictures that coming on our Twitter feed. It's about your behavior on the road, and this is the Stop the Violence campaign that's been run in a few countries in Europe. It really hits home if you look at the pictures, because that's what it's about. We are taking each other's lives on the road by simply not applying our minds, not thinking clearly, and just being a little bit too impatient, I think, at times. Now, on our Facebook page, let's have a quick look at what's on our Facebook page. Of course, Transport Minister Dipo Peters says final statistics for fatalities on the roads during Easter weekend will be released this week. More on that story is available on our page, as well as the carnage counter we spoke of earlier. Then the lingering strike in the platinum sector continues to cripple the community of Rustenburg. We've got a nice feature on that. That's also available on our page. And our YouTube clip of the day, well, it was quite a simple one. South African wheelchair racer Ernst van Dijk made history yesterday when he became the first athlete to win 10 titles. Yes, you heard right. 10 titles at the Boston Marathon in Massachusetts. Van Dijk dominated the 42-kilometer race from start to finish, winning in 1 hour 20 and 36 seconds to clock his second fastest performance at the annual race. Here's the finish.
Father of two and a great spokesperson for this sport.
He knows the thrill of winning Boston. He last did it in 2010. That's when he surpassed Gene Driscoll as the wheelchair racer, the racer of any kind, with more victories than any other, and the crowd now going crazy for Ernst van Dijk.
He was the first man to go sub 120 in the history of wheelchairs. There's been 5 guys since, but he's not on the record pace, but he's very close to it.
Yep, a true legend, 10-time winner of the Boston Marathon. I don't think that will ever be done again. South African Ernst van Dijk, a young man from Stellenbosch, who's been working very hard and been getting very little recognition in this country, unfortunately, over the last almost 15 years. We're going to take a short break. Well, when we come back, we look at the Oscar Pistorius support group in Germany. Don't go away. This is Newsroom on SABC News.
Good evening and welcome to yet another edition of Sports Live, the show that brings you the latest local and international news, live interviews with the who's who in sport. He's the first South African to wear a yellow jersey that was at the Tour de France this year.
It's the first time that we get a boxer who's recognized by the Ring magazine as the best fighter in the planet to visit our country.
And he's very close to world record pace. And in fact, it is a new world record.
thinking when you cross the line? What went through one's mind?
None of the four of us knew who had won. The scoreboard is always on the left, but all of us tend to the right. No, we just waited for the country to go down. RSA.
That's Sports Live, daily at 8:30 p.m. on SABC News.
Zoom into Africa. This is Sierra Leone. The president is Mr. Ernest Bai Koroma. Sierra Leone got independent from the United Kingdom on 27 April in 1961. The population is more than 6 million people. One of the major languages spoken is English. Monetary unit is Leone.
SABC, sharing 20 years of inspiration.
Welcome back. You're still with Newsroom. The Oscar Pistorius trial has been ongoing for almost 2 months, and it's no secret that the trial has attracted audiences worldwide. The new age of social media has completely changed the landscape of this trial, with every second person now being a judge in the matter. Last week, we saw for the first time a new presence outside the High Court, that of Oscar's supporters. The fans, who are mostly women, stood outside Pretoria's High Court holding white balloons and messages of support. Online, we came across a number of websites, blogs and Facebook pages set up in support of Oscar. More remarkable is that some of these pages are run by international fans. Now on the line, we have Mira Teuber, who joins us from Germany to tell us about her blog that boasts, well, more than 200,000 views. Good morning, Mira. Are you there?
Yes, good morning.
Mira, tell us about the group and your motivation and your support that you seem to have.
Okay, so we are a little group of friends behind the blog who run the blog and some web pages like a Facebook page and a Twitter account. And we provide an email address, contact@supportforoscar.com, to which people can send a message for Oscar, a photo, a drawing, a prayer, or whatever they like. And we publish it on our blog then as soon as possible.
Tell us the thinking about the support that you have for Oscar Pistorius. Why do you support him so strongly?
I can talk only about myself here because we all have different motivations why we support him. Oscar has helped me in my life to overcome my own obstacles by just inspiring me. He was the first man without legs to run in the Olympic Games, and it was just, wow, amazing. And I was a bit sad and depressed back then. That was in 2008, so a long time ago. But through the inspiration he gave me, I changed my life and the way the perception towards my life, and I became a lot more healthy, more active, and I feel much better now, and that's thanks to Oscar.
Don't you feel that it's not 100% correct to do so, because Oscar stands accused of murder, first-degree murder in South Africa, shooting a woman 4 times in a country where violence against women and especially children is a problem?
I know that violence against women is a serious issue, but it's all over the world, and I don't think Oscar's case is a case about violence against women, really. It's more about a tragic and fateful mistake he made. We as a group definitely are against violence against women. It's an issue, and it deserves more attention, wider attention to the public. It should be talked about. But what people don't understand, or many people don't understand, and they find it disrespectful for Reva and her family to show support for Oscar, but it's not. We respect everyone affected by this tragedy, and they're very sorry for Reva's loved ones as well. We understand they're devastated and heartbroken, and we feel for them, absolutely. It's very sad that a young love ended in such a tragedy. They loved each other very much, so it's not about violence against women, in my opinion.
What will you do if, in a month or so's time, Oscar Pistorius is found guilty of murder? What do you then do with the group?
First of all, I don't think Oscar will be found guilty for murder, but because it was not murder, in our opinion. And the rest is just pure speculation, and we don't want to further any speculation. So whatever the outcome of the trial may be, we have to accept the judge's decision. But what I can say is that we will stand by Oscar no matter what.
Well, Mira, thank you very much for joining us today. Interesting. We in South Africa find your group very interesting. And ganz vielen Dank, Dan heute. Tschüss und alles gut. Now, the United Nations says rebel gunmen in South Sudan massacred hundreds of civilians when they captured a key oil town last week. South Sudan's army has been fighting rebels loyal to sacked Vice President Riek Machar for the past 4 months. South Africa's special envoy to South Sudan, ANC Deputy President Cyril Ramaphosa, will chair talks on ending the conflict in the Ethiopian capital Addis Ababa today.
The crisis in South Sudan erupted in December last year when President Salva Kiir dismissed his Vice President Riek Machar and the whole cabinet, accusing Machar of plotting to oust him. This led to other splinter groups also taking arms against Kiir's regime. Among these groups are SPLM, the 7 people who were released into the hands of the Kenya government, and those calling themselves the SPLM opposition. Ramaphosa says South Africa is committed to assisting the South Sudanese people and the conflict.
They have now agreed on this process of trying to resolve the challenges in their party, and that is a major step forward. They're now going to sit down and try and resolve these, and of course in this regard we as South Africa are playing a facilitating role together with Ethiopia.
Ramaphosa's efforts to end the conflict in South Sudan has seen him meet with Presidents Yoweri Museveni of Uganda, Prime Minister Haile Mariam Desalegn of Ethiopia, and the International Governmental Authority of Development. The special envoy will report to President Jacob Zuma and continue to engage role players in an effort to find lasting peace, stability and reconciliation in South Sudan. Lehana Tsotetsi, SABC News, Johannesburg.
Well, now on to something a little bit different, different take on hunting on the African continent, rather. Earlier this month, a bushman named Jumanda Gakelebone from the central Kalahari travelled 5,000 miles from his home in Botswana to tell the Prince of Wales, Prince Charles, that the bushmen in Botswana are not poachers, but that they hunt to survive. This comes after Botswana President Ian Khama banned hunting nationwide, even for bushmen who hunt to feed their families, under the pretext of clamping down on poaching. In February, Botswana's President Khama was an honoured guest at a global anti-poaching conference in London alongside Prince Charles and Prince William. We are joined on the line again by Survival International campaigner Rachel Stenham. Very good morning to you, Rachel. Are you there?
Yes, good morning.
Just give us a little bit of background on why hunting has been banned in the country and how the bushmen are now affected by this.
Well, the Bushmen are the last nomadic hunter-gatherer Bushmen in southern Africa, and they've relied on hunting game for millennia. Unfortunately, the government has been cracking down on the Bushmen for many years now, and the Bushmen were forced to go to court against the government, and they won a historic case in 2006 to allow them to hunt on their traditional land in the Central Kalahari Game Reserve. What's happened now is the Botswana president, as you say, has imposed a nationwide crackdown on hunting, but he's offered no compensation for the Bushmen, who, of course, completely rely on hunting game for their survival. They live in this large reserve about the size of Switzerland. They hunt using traditional methods, using bows and arrows and spears. But the government, despite a court order saying that they can continue to hunt, has stopped them from being able to apply for any hunting licenses. So at the moment, the Bushmen are being left to starve in the reserve as a clear tactic to force them out of the reserve.
Is that the main concern, firstly? And secondly, tell us about the reaction from Prince Charles.
Well, there are many concerns for the Bushmen of the CKGR. Not only have they been denied the right to hunt, but they've also been denied access to water. They had to go back to court again in order to be able to open up a borehole that the Botswana government sealed over during the forced evictions of the Bushmen. So they do now have one functioning water borehole, but they're also being harassed by paramilitary police who are encircling the communities and are harassing the Bushmen. There's been numerous cases of people beaten up and even tortured by the authorities. So there is a huge amount of pressure coming from the Botswana government and the police authorities and to push the Bushmen off the land once and for all. Survival believes that this is for diamonds because there is now one large functioning diamond mine, despite the government denying it for many years. So, as I say, we're concerned about all of the pressures to push the Bushmen off the land. The Bushmen have appealed to Prince Charles because he was very supportive of the Bushmen during the court cases prior to 2006 when they won the case. And we haven't had a response from the letter yet, but that's not unusual. And we'll be telling the public what the response from Prince Charles is once we've received it.
And this ban, has it had any effect on poaching in Botswana?
Well, we don't know. I think it's too early to tell. But actually, the government imposed this nationwide ban before actually knowing what the reason for the wildlife depreciation was. They're not actually sure that it is through poaching, but they decided to impose the ban anyway. So we don't know. But in the areas where the Bushmen of the CKTR live, they're not poachers themselves. They're not selling the meat. They're using the meat for their own survival. So the ban shouldn't have much effect on the Bushmen if they were allowed to continue with their traditional hunter-gatherer methods. But unfortunately, that's been cracked down on as well.
Well, Rachel, thank you for joining us today. That's Rachel Stenham, joining us on the line. She's from Survival International, joining us on the line in London, giving us an update as to, the hunting ban in Botswana, how it's affecting the culture and the traditional lifestyle of the Bushmen in that country. Now let's take a look at what you are talking about on social media, what you're thinking about on social media. Don't forget, as always, at SABC Newsroom on Twitter. That's where you can send us your contributions. Hopefully, there we go. Luleka says, I'm praying that the platinum strike is resolved this week. The families of those miners are suffering. That is right. People have not earned since the middle of January. IG says it's been like 4 months now and the platinum giants don't want to give the workers money, yet they complain about losing billions daily. Brian Sentongo says, let's hope they reach a settlement today. Yes, let's hope so. The people are starving. Hope I don't regret it, but I like AMCU strikers. It's not a lot. It's not a lot, but it sounds a lot. 12,500, says Tumelo. Mpumelelo says, AMCU strikers cost the platinum sector more than 13 billion rand, while employees have lost more than 5 billion rand in wages. Well, those are your tweets. At SABC Newsroom on Twitter, that's where we love to interact with you. You can send us pictures, videos, clips, whatever you have at SABC Newsroom. We put them even on our Facebook page. You can put it up and we'll use it. If it's good, we'll play it out on the show in one of our breaks. Well, time for us to take another break. When we come back, we look at IPL cricket, and before that, we'll go around the digital landscape here at SABC News and tell you what's been happening in the last, over the Easter weekend, really.
SABC, sharing 20 years of inspiration.
Earth tremor has hit parts of Johannesburg. No damage or injuries have been reported after a magnitude 4 tremor this morning. The tremor shook parts of Johannesburg just before 10 this morning. It has been described as quite a big guy.
The provisional epicenter that the Council for Geoscience has given is a few kilometers southwest of the University of Johannesburg.
Previously in 1999, a similar tremor was recorded measuring 5.7 in Valcom. Another event of this magnitude can be expected again within the next 3 weeks.
That's Primetime News, daily at 6 p.m. on SABC News.
Good day and welcome to yet another evening of Afro Showbiz News. Kumba is a South African animated film that tells a story of a zebra who looks different.
It's about a zebra who's born with half his stripes, and he goes on a journey through the Karoo to find his stripes.
We've shown it to a few audiences at festivals around the world, and we've had really fantastic responses. So we're very excited to see what the South African population thinks of Kumba.
That's Afro Showbiz News, Saturdays 7:30 p.m. on SABC News.
SABC, sharing 20 years of inspiration.
Welcome back. This is Newsroom on SABC News. Let's take a quick look at the news headlines. More than 100 people have been killed on the country's roads since the beginning of Easter. The Road Traffic Management Corporation says disregard for road rules is a major contributor to accidents. Traffic across all major roads remains high as people make their way home after the Easter weekend. The Minister of Transport, Dipuo Peters, will tomorrow release the final figures of the 2014 Easter Road Safety Campaign. President Jacob Zuma has met residents and the business community of areas surrounding Nkandla in KwaZulu-Natal to address their concerns over the lack of infrastructure in the area. The president is under fire over security upgrades with 246 million rand to his Nkandla home. He has put together a steering committee and tasked it with coordinating improvements in service delivery in that part of KwaZulu-Natal. Groups backing the campaign against rhino poaching say the 40 rhino horns stolen from the safe of a state tourism organisation at the weekend could be worth at least 160 million rand. The horns were taken from the Mpumalanga Tourism and Parks Agency. More than 270 rhinos have been killed already this year, nearly half of them from the Kruger National Park. Well, time now for us to look at what's been happening on our digital platforms over the weekend. Joining me is the SABC's digital news production editor, Christelle de Toy. Good morning, Christelle. Thank you for joining us.
Morning. Thank you very much.
Hope you've had a good Easter weekend.
I did. The Easter bunny smiled kindly on me, so I feel fatter already, but it was a very good weekend.
Well, all of us feel a bit fatter today. But anyhow, let's just look at news-wise. Has it been a quiet Easter weekend? It seems as if everyone's been on the campaign trail in a way.
Everyone's been on the campaign trail. We started by looking at some of the photographs coming from Muria, from the ZCC gathering. And then on the website, we also took a look at some of the Easter egg hunts that were happening, seeing what people are getting up to over the weekend. We definitely did look at the campaign trail. I think as we head towards the elections, it's just going to get more and more intense. We've got a map online that tracks who of the major newsmakers are campaigning where. Yeah. And we've seen a definite surge in people going around the country.
That's it, and of course, I'm sure there's some pictures of what's happened in Maria and so forth over the weekend, or not?
Absolutely. You can just search on our website, and you can see President Jacob Zuma was there over the weekend. Yeah. You can see Julius Malema was there over the weekend, and we're keeping track of all those things, and also the lighter side.
How do we keep track of all the newsmakers on the campaign trail? How can people follow that in the digital space, sort of?
So all you have to do is to search for Campaign Trail on our website, and you will find a map where you click on different areas, and it shows you multimedia content on which leaders where, what did they say, what did the people say about that, and then we match that against social media activity as well. Yeah. So if people keep tweeting us, if they keep going to our Facebook page, then we can incorporate their comments on that and create a holistic picture of exactly who said what where at what time in the run-up to the election, obviously looking also at your hotspots. Yeah.
There's also, I also see you're looking at election booth etiquette. Is that right?
Yes.
How do you behave in the election booth? Have we got something?
We've got something on that. Did you know you're not allowed to take a selfie actually in the entire election station space, and specifically not in the voting booth? And the reason for this is that people get intimidated, sometimes even bribed, into voting for a specific party, and people will then say you need to take a picture of yourself voting for party X or party Y. So while they can't limit you taking a phone into the voting station, there aren't enough safes, there's not enough capacity. Yeah. The police and the safety personnel, they are on the lookout for it, and it's a crime to take a selfie in the voting booth, so rather not.
Oh, that is such a big setback for all of you self-obsessed people out there taking pictures of yourself everywhere. That's never good. And then I see there's quite a unique little thing you're working on Facebook, you know, that's got to do with how people are viewed, sort of how parties and individuals are viewed?
Yeah, we've been seeing a lot of analysis coming up in the run-up to the election. Ipsos, for example, showed trends since 2009 to 2013, saying that people are disappointed specifically with how President Jacob Zuma is performing. And that was also echoed by a poll by Omni. And we took some of that. You'll see here that you've got the Ipsos poll. Underneath that, we've got the Omni poll. And we then went to Facebook. And in the context of the president's birthday, we tracked what is it that people are saying about the president and what are their views on them. Now, interestingly, you find a lot of personal attacks, and we can negotiate how constructive that is and how much that achieves. But a lot of sentiment against Nkandla, a lot of sentiments against corruption. And it is really, while it's certainly not a scientific poll like the others are, it affirms what's happening in social media, echoes what's happening out there. The challenge, of course, for any given political party is to translate what happens in the social media space to actual votes or non-votes. It's just another reflection of views. It doesn't mean that people are not going to vote for the ANC or for any given party.
And what are some of the other things that people are passionate about? The economy, performance of the economy, I would think, at this time?
I think the economy took a big knock at one stage, so people are very critical of that. A lot of it is centered around President Zuma, though. But we wanted to take it to a more constructive space, so we're actually running a campaign around born frees and the people who can vote for the first time in the upcoming elections. And we're encouraging them to send us 1-minute video clips so they can take it from their cell phones, from whatever equipment they have, and tell us, are they voting, are they not voting, and what are their reasons for that. So we'll hopefully bring some of those video clips here. They can visit our Facebook page and watch some interviews from other young people who have already spoken out on why they are going to vote and why they're not going to vote, things they're confused about. And we want to try and create a platform for people to engage a bit with the elections and show us what their sentiments are.
And then the good news is the South African won the Boston Marathon for the 10th time, Ernst van Dijk.
Awesome, hey?
What a hero. What an incredible man. Unfortunately, it doesn't get all the press in South Africa that it should be getting, is it?
No, unfortunately, you still find certain sporting, what shall we call it, disciplines in terms of disabled sporting being disadvantaged in media coverage. We've certainly got it on the website, and we've also got some multimedia showing some of the costumes of people who are participating in the marathon. I think we had the Hulk there, we had Spider-Man. It's, of course, very significant that there's a lighter side to it after the bombings that we saw previously. So it's good to see that people's spirits are up again.
Yeah, people sort of get on with life, I suppose, as we always do on this planet. But thank you for joining us today. Comprehensive as always.
Thank you very much.
Fantastic offering on all our digital platforms. So, you know, if you want to know what's happening in the world and you want to see some interesting insights, go to SABC News online or any of our other digital platforms, even our YouTube channels. You'll find some original content. Thank you, Christelle.
Thank you for your time.
Now, a league that's been racked by match fixing and other scandals remains the most lucrative in the game of cricket. The game is now in IPL season. The world's leading cricketer, according to Cricket Bible Wisdom, South African Dale Steyn, caused quite a stir a few years back at the IPL when he called the league a working holiday. Now, a man who knows a lot about working holidays, Craig Murray, former professional player, commentator, and now journalist, joins us in Cape Town. Good morning, Craig. Thanks for joining us.
Morning. Pleasure. Morning, Evan.
Working holiday, Craig. Is that what the top pros are seeing the IPL as?
Definitely not, actually. He was quite embarrassed when he did make that statement. But they're making so much money now. I mean, 5, 10. Yuvraj Singh is making 20 million rand for the 6 weeks. So it's a lot of money that they need to try and justify. So most of these guys are quite professional. When you're earning money like that, it's quite embarrassing when you don't perform. So especially the guys who make the big money, they want to perform.
I wanted to ask you about the league and the credibility of this league, really. We seem to have a slot every year that's now IPL season, but we've seen arrests for match fixing in recent times. The chairman of the Board of Control for Cricket in India, the son-in-law, is one of those that's arrested. What is this game doing? What is this doing to the game of cricket?
Well, it's a complete disgrace, the whole situation. But they don't really care, the Indian Cricket Board, and it's all about making money. And they basically have shown 2 fingers to the rest of the world. So Srinivasan has sort of been suspended as the Indian cricket chief. The Supreme Court in India are the only ones that they've said they need the IPL need to put up a sort of a three-man board to try and investigate this probe, because the last time Srinivasan just turned a blind eye. And of course, his son-in-law was the main principal of the team there, the Chennai Super Kings, which is owned by India Cements, which is the MD Srinivasan. So it really is a disgrace. And even more of a disgrace than that even is at least the Indian Supreme Court have asked for answers. The ICC have asked for nothing. While Srinivasan is now sort of suspended as the Indian cricket chief, he's elected as the head of the ICC, and the likes of all these countries like England or Australia, they're all in bed with him. They all want to make money. So where the Indian Supreme Court have asked questions, the ICC have just accepted him without asking any questions.
That is scary. Scary, 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 Craig. Wanted to ask you about what this type of cricket really means for the game. To me, I watch it now and the result is almost not important. And I think fans are now watching cricket like this, where you come and you watch your own star or your own hero. The result is almost secondary. That's not good for the game.
No, it's not. I mean, it's a lot of it's entertainment and all that sort of thing. I'm with you, you know, that the result, but with all these owners and these Hollywood egos, big egos, they do want to win the tournament. You know, they splash out a lot of money, and so there is pride to win. And we mustn't forget there's bonuses like you can't believe. So someone like Albie Morkel, who's underperformed for South Africa in T20s, he's played for the Chennai Super Kings for years. He's now playing for the Bangalore Royal Challengers. But I mean, they won the tournament a few times when he was at the Chennai Super Kings. You get R1 million bonus just for that. So there's a lot to play for with all these bonuses. But I really think it's bad for cricket, the T20. You never want to, you know, stop these guys from making a killing. And they certainly, it's the lotto. You know, they won the lotto, so many of these players, by earning such huge sums of money for 6 weeks. But I don't think it's good for cricket, and it's just overkill as well, because you have the Big Bash in Australia, you have Sri Lanka, you're having a T20, you have the West Indies, then you have the Champions League. It's just too much, and I'm hoping that at some stage it will just die a very quick death. But there's certainly a lot of money to be made for everyone.
Yeah, I think the money will sort of keep it upright for the next couple of years. But let's then talk about the cricket itself. It's exciting, it's entertaining, I suppose, and a couple of South Africans are putting in sterling performance early doors. JP Duminy, what you're saying about him?
Yeah, no, he has. He's been superb, playing now for the Delhi Daredevils, who Gary Kirsten is the coach of, and Eric Simons there as well. Wayne Pernal sort of had a small part to play there with the bowling. And the other big name that's done really well is David Miller, with the Punjab 11. Him and Glenn Maxwell have been the stars of the Kings 11 Punjab. That's been very exciting. So Miller has won 2 games for his team. AB de Villiers, probably the strongest outfit, the Bangalore Royal Challengers. Chris Gayle hasn't had a game yet. He's had a lower back problems. And then, of course, Kevin Peterson, as captain of the Delhi Daredevils, hasn't played as well. But the Bangalore Royal Challengers, they've still got AB de Villiers, they've got Virat Kohli, they've got Yuvraj Singh. I mean, Yuvraj Singh went for $2.3 million for the 6 weeks. That's over 20 million rand. So that's a lot of money. But a lot of the other players, besides JP, David Miller, and AB de Villiers, Morne Morkel hasn't bowled well. Albie Morkel hasn't really bowled well. I'm hoping to see, as the weeks go, and hopefully that Bjorn Hendricks is playing for a team, and so is Quinton de Kock. They just haven't had game time. Faf du Plessis had a small, hasn't had much game time either. So the interesting thing is the South African batsmen have produced some performances, but we haven't seen a bowler. Dale Steyn is the only one, but he hasn't really performed. And you see these spin bowlers with the X factor like Sunal Narine. South Africa don't have one spin bowler at the IPL.
It's a batsman's game, Craig Murray. Thank you. Thanks for joining us, Craig. I want to get paid 20 million rand for my next working holiday, Craig. Thanks for joining us. That's Craig Murray joining us down in Cape Town. Well, former player, commentator, and now journalist right here with SABC News. Let's just take a final look at what you're talking about, what you're thinking about on social media at this moment. Congratulations to Ernst van Dijk for winning the wheelchair Boston Marathon. Viva van Dijk, viva. That's very well. Mr. Minister, thank you very much for showing your love and support there. Team Lusapo says big shout out to Ernst van Dijk for winning the men's wheelchair division of the Boston Marathon for a 10th time. What a legend. You could not be more right. Isla Boston says congrats to Ernst van Dijk for his 10th Boston Marathon win in the men's wheelchair division. Just saw that South African Ernst van Dijk won the Boston Marathon wheelchair race for a record 10th time. Superb. Absolutely superb eyesight. Ernst van Dijk is a long-suffering athlete in South Africa, a man who often have to go overseas and win a race in order to pay for his expenses of the travel there. So think about that, winning the Boston Marathon for 10 times. Absolutely fantastic. This show is broadcast live every weekday morning between 9 and 10 a.m. Highlights are repeated at 2 in the afternoon with a complete rebroadcast then at 5 o'clock the following morning. We also stream live on YouTube between 9 and 10 a.m. Every morning in the week. And then, of course, well, our YouTube channel is live all the time. That's where you can watch the show in your office at any time during the day. Maybe make it lunch hour and you can watch the morning's Newsroom show. It'll really be worth your while. This is SABC News. You've been watching Newsroom, where we love it in the morning.